Dr. Pravina. How are you?
I'm good, Melissa. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. First of all, thank you very much for willing to do this with me, to join me on this video podcast called It's a Tough Life, where we try to answer the tough questions in life and figure out the tough situations in life as well, and also probably make it easier for each other to make the tough decisions and tough calls in life. So,
It's a lot
from
of toughness.
it up, yeah, a lot of tough. Yeah, it's called It's a Tough Life. So, again, you are an educator. You are an entrepreneur, researcher, and public speaker.
Yeah.
But today I'd like to specifically ask you about your other area of expertise and interest, yeah, which is narcissism. Because often I've been confused, narcissism has been called a trait and a personality disorder. And to me, one is a bit more excusable than the other. So maybe you could share your insights on the difference between narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder.
All right. So, right now, it has been a trend. Narcissism. Everybody talks about narcissism. Everybody labels everyone a narcissist. He's a narcissist. My boss is a narcissist. My spouse is a narcissist. But what exactly is a narcissist? And you're right. One is excusable than the other. You see. So narcissism is a spectrum. It's a range of spectrum. I'm talking about the term narcissism only. Yeah. So narcissism is a spectrum. Everybody, I would boldly claim this. This is based on research that everybody has a degree of narcissism in them. Narcissism. What traits are there? You are selfish. You manipulate. We do all those things. We gossip. It's not something that we should, we shouldn't be like this. We all can't be saints all the time. We do all this, isn't it? Little gossips here and
Correct.
there, a
Yes.
little bit of
Yes.
manipulation, a little bit of gaslighting. It's part and parcel of a normal human behavior. So narcissism is a spectrum. However, NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, is actually a condition.
So it's treatable, it's excusable. Well, more excusable than a trait, right?
More excusable. It is more of a conditioning behavior. It is not a genetic disorder or something. It is more of a bondage behavior, like a trauma behavior kind of a thing. If the person chooses. So narcissism is not, I wouldn't say that there are certain medications because I cannot prescribe all those things. It's not under my field. However, in my field of study, in my field of research, narcissism is something that is treatable by the person themselves. They will have to be able to realize once they come to a realization. However, people with narcissistic personality disorder, sadly, they will not know that they are narcissists. They truly believe themselves, whatever that they say is true. So before going further, actually, what is narcissism? Narcissism is being overly obsessive with yourself.
Self-love, according to the Greeks.
Self-love is a good word because there's love in it. You love yourself first before giving out your commitments or your time or your energy to others. That is self-love. Self-love is on a much more higher level scale compared to narcissism. Narcissism is much more sinister in that sense, narcissistic personality disorder, because they love themselves, yes, but they overly love themselves and they show a lack of empathy for others. So there's also malignant narcissism, obsessive grandiose narcissism, where they do not give priority to others' feelings and emotions, and always cutting conversations, trying to put their point across. These are the traits of narcissism, which we can discuss further.
Right. So if you go back to day-to-day life, because anyone can be a narcissist, right? Your boss, your parent, your spouse. How do you spot out a narcissist?
Okay. So a narcissistic personality disorder, let me talk in a point of view where when you meet that person, it is very hard to recognize and get go that the person is a narcissist. Only with time. So if parent we will be in a state where we will not recognize that our parents are narcissists until we reach an age where we kind of understand a little, when we are in our teens, and those age where things are confusing for us. Maybe we might be able to analyze the situation, but we can't do anything. Narcissistic parents has the upper control on that sense, whereby they are able to condition that child to to listen, to obey them, to be obedient, and controlling, manipulating. In other words, probably getting the child to believe that they are not good enough. That would be parent. There's also a narcissistic boss or narcissistic spouse or narcissistic partner. When we know them, we may not recognize that they are narcissists. Recognition traits would be, they would not allow you to speak that much about themselves, about yourself. Say, for example, you're talking about a certain scenario that has happened today morning. Immediately they will interject and say, oh no, I've also experienced this, no, I've done this. They like to put their point across. It's more of an I, me,
Right,
mine. They are so obsessed with that word and term. Another one is lack of empathy or fake empathy. Sometimes it's just, oh, I see, I understand. I had this. No, I did this also. It's like putting their point across. So this is not something that you can recognize in a short period of time. It's with frequent contact with them on a day-to-day basis. That's when you can recognize. But even then, you cannot label the person as a NPD, narcissistic personality disorder. It could be a little bit of a narcissistic trait, but to label them as a total narcissist is also a bit extreme, because bosses can also be, they can also be bossy, isn't it? You cannot just label them as a narcissist because of that. Other areas of life, they might be a good parent, they might be a good husband, might be a good wife. But with us, because of the job scope, they can behave like a narcissist. But in actual fact, they are good individuals. I mean, they are individuals that have different good behaviors at different areas of their life. It's probably their job scope that's requiring them to be as such. So labeling one person as a narcissist is actually a huge thing to do. Nowadays, it's so common. Everybody labels everyone as a narcissist, but the true narcissist is a person who will never recognize that they are a narcissist.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but most of the time narcissists are very charming, magnetic, right? Very charismatic. So there is this method which I read up about. It's called the gray rock method, whereby you just don't react emotionally to a narcissist. Is that really the best way to handle a narcissist?
Okay, so before going to gray rocking method, your perception on narcissists, that they are very charming, they are very grand. Those are overt narcissists. That's one extreme of a narcissist, where they they look so good, they look so charming. That's also a point of their self-confidence that can also be labeled as a very high self-esteem. Even there also there's this line here, a thin line between a narcissist or a person with high self-esteem. There's also another category of narcissists, which is a covert narcissist. These people always look like victims.
They look like, sorry, was it?
They look like victims themselves. They
Victims,
always
oh
have
gosh.
this. When you see them, it's like they are always full of self-pity. My life is miserable. I'm going through this. I'm going through that. Whenever you are with them, there's a lot of drama, and you'll be like, oh God. That is also a form of narcissism. So they may not necessarily be charming all the time. Now, gray rocking. To date, it's either the narcissists themselves realize and they want to change. That is one method. For the person who is experiencing the brunt of this narcissist, gray rocking is the most effective method. When you do not give, to date until now, there's no scientific method or things like that, because eventually it's how we process our thoughts and our emotions is what matters the most. So gray rocking means not empowering their words, not empowering, do not acknowledge whatever that they say or whatever that they throw to you. You just Like people say, what bodo lah kan? But there's also a catch there. Grey rocking will only be effective if we don't take the words personally into us.
That's
You
not
can
easy to do because we have feelings as well.
exactly. So the first step is to what bodo. You just don't care about what they say, but internally you should not process it. That's when grey rocking is the most effective one, in the sense that nothing that they say matters to you. Outside superficial level, that would be your first step, to not empower their words, or to not cry, or to not react to their words, because that's what they are hoping for. They want you to react to it. But deeper, another level is for you to stay calm internally. You don't go to another room and cry out and, oh, they've said this, they've said that. That is another level. That is when um, gray rocking actually works, not only for the narcissist but for yourself also. You have to take care of your internal thoughts as well.
Another question is like, let's say if your boss is a narcissist or your spouse, and then what if you really value your job and really cherish the relationship? Should you walk away, or how should you turn it into a win-win situation?
Depending on the severity, a very logical approach would be the best way to look at it, Melissa. So depending on how much you want the job and whether it comes from a place of desperation. So those are negative emotions. When you associate your relationship with a narcissist, you have to weigh the pros and cons. How is it making you feel? You have to have that table. I always have this table for myself: pros, cons, very clear cut. Sometimes emotions makes things very difficult for us to think. We will always we like to latch on to emotions. We put a lot of negativity and drama inside it, and we do not make wise decisions based on this. We do not make calculated, logical decisions. So make a table, pros and cons. What is the benefit if I stay in this relationship? What will I lose? How is it making? How is it making my? Is it? Am I progressing in my life with this? Or am I constantly sitting at the back and thinking and sobbing and crying, but I'm putting up a brave face. I'm internally disturbed. You have to have that pros and cons. Once you have that clear cut, which is more beneficial, you can have that weightage already. Then you will be able to decide. It all depends on you. People
Right.
around can only give you advice and guidance, but they are not you. Only you know how you process your thoughts, isn't it?
True,
So
true.
yeah,
Okay.
a logical approach is the best way to do this.
Oh, that's tough. Easier said than done.
Exactly. That is why, to cure from being a narcissist victim, if you want to survive is one thing, but to thrive, your emotional stability is very, very important. Most of our problems in our lives is because we are not able to regulate our mental state. It's very hard to detach from emotions completely, I agree, but you can switch your thought process about around that situation.
Right. Switch that control back to yourself, I guess. You be
Exactly.
in control. Now, you've heard of a high functioning alcoholic, right?
High
As
functioning.
alcoholic.
Okay.
So,
Mm-hmm.
is there any such thing as a healthy narcissist which you should tolerate?
Okay. Healthy narcissism is actually a research term by Heinz Kohut, the person who actually found the term narcissism itself. Narcissism is actually it's a Greek word. It comes from the word flower, the flower narcissus. So it's actually a Greek legend about it, about this guy who saw his reflection and all that. And Heinz Kohut, he was the one who wrote the research paper on narcissism, that we all are narcissists and there are certain traits. And he was also the one who coined the term healthy narcissism. Healthy narcissism is self-esteem. It's high self-esteem. Although, in my personal opinion, when I talk to people, I do not like to use the term at all. Narcissism is a term that I would avoid at all costs. To address someone as a healthy narcissist itself is labeling them in some way, because narcissism, the word is there, the term is there. I always relate to that term. But healthy narcissists are there, they exist. How do you become a healthy narcissist? if you're a survivor of you've survived from a narcissistic relationship, for example, chances are you will carry the person's traits. If your parent is a narcissist, this is depending on the contact level that you had with a narcissist. Either if you've been with a spouse for 30 years, that kind of a long relationship, chances are you may carry a little bit of the narcissistic trait. But if you realize that you are consciously aware that you do not want to be the narcissist, so then you convert that into self-love, self-esteem, self-empathy, self-efficacy. You have that controlled notion, that is healthy narcissism. To answer your question, there is a term called healthy narcissism, and there is such a thing called healthy narcissism. You like to take selfies of yourself,
But these days, that's a fad. It's a trend.
Yes, it's a trend. So I'm a healthy narcissist, and you take a picture. So that doesn't make sense, also, isn't it? There's always a boundary between using the right words to describe your behavior.
Which brings me to my last question today. Again, this video podcast it's called It's a Tough Life. It's about calling the tough shots, making the tough choices. See, like what you mentioned with social media, I suppose kids who grow up in this environment, they are more prone to probably being a bit more narcissist than the older generation. So as a parent, what tough choices would you make to keep narcissism at bay in your kids' upbringing?
Okay. So by the way, I do not have kids yet.
That's okay.
So yeah, I'm a lecturer, so I deal with a lot of teenagers and young adults. And yes, narcissism is prevalent, but kids these days, they are quite smart in that sense. We do not label them as such. It depends on the upbringing. As a parent, this is not stereotyping, but if you compare Asian parenting and Western parenting, Asian parenting is much more authoritative in that manner. You see, there's a lot of we call it narcissistic traits, but not narcissistic personality disorder. That would be another analysis altogether. How would we avoid this? It's actually a vicious cycle in that sense. Some parents, they have this thought that whatever that I don't get, my child must get it. Then they bombard the child with all sorts of luxury, money, in the name of love. You do all this, or overprotectiveness, or they don't actually how do we say, kids these days, not all, depends on the parent. If the parent thinks that the child deserves the best, so I have to give the best, that is a mentality that you should cut off. There's a lot of tricks that we can discuss on over parenting, authoritarian discipline, how do you instill discipline in your kids and all this. But for narcissistic, how the cycle continues is when a child thinks that they are privileged to get certain benefits. That's what we call instant gratification. When a child cries, these days the parents will just give a tab. Okay, watch the cartoon. So that is the first step of embedding narcissism into the child at a very, very young age without you even realizing it, you see. Parenting is a huge job. There's a lot of things for you to consider. You set the stepping stones for a child, to be the future leaders and all those things. It's a very huge thing for you to think about. Think whether you can be a good parent or not. Think what do you need to research before being a parent. I would really love to address that. You go down to that point and ask yourself whether, if you want to be a parent, what kind of a parent you would like to be.
Probably I'll ask you that in the next interview.
Sure, Melissa, sure.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah. Dr. Pravina, it's been so lovely chatting with you today. Thank you for this fun and very informative chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa.